I'm Michael Bitar, Protus Global, and this is Cracking the Code. Today I've got Neil Nersesian, Silver King Beverage, COO out of Salt Lake City. Neil, how you doing, buddy?
I'm great, man. It's great to be here. Thanks, Mike.
I appreciate you coming in. I'm excited to chat with you today. We're going to cover some really cool topics today. Before we dive into some of the topics, why don't you just give the audience a little bit of your background?
Yeah, thanks. I 30 years of making mistakes. Start that way. With I was 20 years at Anheuser-Busch InBev. The benefit of being in two cultures there, right? 15 years at Anheuser-Busch, and then 5 years with the new company when we were having a lot of fun deleveraging and really changing the business. And then I took a role as the head of operations for Pabst, and after that, when Heineken bought Lagunitas, they recruited me to come help in Petaluma, California, which brought me to Northern California. And since then, I've done a bunch of consulting, a bunch of advising, and then just as of late, I joined John Saxtetter to help run Silver King Beverage Company, established 2025, and we're looking forward to really being the leader in co-packing really great energy drinks, alternative modern sodas, etc.
Excellent. No, it's great. Congratulations on the recent move.
Thank you.
And I think from the topical perspective of what we're going to cover today, which is leading through transition, I think what you just walked us through, those 30 years are, they're incredibly important for your ability to do what you're doing right now. So I do want to kind of take a little bit of a look back before we get to the current state. So go back to the ABI dynamic, Neil. And so were you there for the 3G component coming into the business?
Yes, I was. As I said, I was 15 years with the original Anheuser-Busch. And so when I was very fortunate to be able to be part of the transition team. So they moved 100 people moved 100 people into the New York office in order to transition and deleverage the company right after the buyout. Remember, that was in November of 2008 in the middle of a financial crisis.
Yes.
It was quite amazing, actually, and it was a lot of fun to work on that. And so it was really my chance to kind of transition from working in breweries, a real meritocracy with some great teams, and 100 of us was supposed to be a third of the existing InBev, a third of the existing Anheuser-Busch, and a third from the outside supporting the leadership team there. I was very fortunate to be chosen as one of the third that ended up working on that team with all of the chiefs in New York.
No, that had to be an incredibly insightful and a great learning experience as things changed pretty dramatically. And maybe at the time it didn't feel quickly, but I'm sure, when you think about it, those changes evolved in a pretty quick pace. You transition from that environment to all of these additional beverage opportunities and experiences that you've had. How was it? And this is when you and I got to know each other, is when you made the transition from ABI over to Pabst. But how was it going from that major, large corporate business, very well run, resource heavy, to more small entrepreneurial businesses, starting with Pabst and then evolving to what you're doing now with Silver King?
Yeah, it's such a great question because it was all part of the way I was thinking at the time too. I mean, I grew up in this where at Anheuser-Busch, no matter what I was working on, I could always find somebody who was better at it, smarter, had done it before, had made some of the mistakes. I could pick up the phone and I could call 20 people and get help right away. And at first, first 10 years of my career, you didn't want to do it, right? Yeah, I can do it. I can do everything. And then I learned that this is really crazy. Like, all of these people have all this knowledge and have made some of these mistakes. Let me pull that in and do it. And then when I transitioned to Pabst, Pabst was a sales and marketing company and wasn't really an operating company. And so I was the first real operator there at that level. And so there wasn't that many people at all to call on, and it was really difficult. So we brought external resources. We were building a team. I was relying on people that I've known in the past, but I was exercising a new muscle. And anytime you exercise a new muscle, you're going to make mistakes. I made mistakes doing that. I learned a lot. And then I was faced with the opportunity of Heineken buying Lagunitas and going there, and I thought, wow, this could be the best of both worlds.
Right,
This is
right.
going to be a 3-year run where I'm going to get to run my own show, but I have all of the Heineken resources kind of at my fingertips to be able to draw on, and that was really wonderful. It was really a great time, and I met a lot of people, and again, made some more mistakes, and learned from those, and then I keep carrying on from one job to the next.
No, absolutely. So one of the topics that is been on people's minds for years and years and years, but it is a right now as well is leading through transformation, whatever that transformation may be, right? There's a lot of different types of transformation, and I think sometimes that word may be a little bit overused, but you're in that scenario right now with Silver King Beverage, without question. So maybe ground us a bit on what is the transformation that's going on, and how have you, kind of taken a view and decided how to help Silver King Beverage go through what you guys are going through?
Yeah, it's great. The transformation word somehow doesn't sit with me really well. It is a transformation and it is a thing, but what transformation is kind of taking a plan and then just really making rapid iterations to meet the goal. If you
I like that.
People back up and say, "Oh, I'm going to do this transformation, and here's the plan, and we're going to do this, 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 and this." It reminds me of that Mike Tyson quote that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? And so you're going to get punched in the face as soon as you impact something that's in the way of getting it done, or as soon as, and that, I think that quote goes back to like a war reference of everybody has a plan until you actually face your enemy.
Right.
But that's really part of what we're doing is iterating. And then there's so many tactics that you have to go through when you're doing that. And one of the first things I like to do is really look at what are the key accountabilities of the people on the team, and making sure that we have the right people in the right seats doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
If we get to the right people in the right seats doing the right things, everything else can fall into place. And then the next part is really aligning incentives. So for instance, if my incentives aren't aligned with every single person in the plant, then I'm not going to have and really the commercial team and everything.
Right.
If everybody's not aligned and doesn't know what success looks like, we're going to be in trouble. We're not going to be pulling in the same direction. So that's the first part. And it sounds very simple, but it's simple not to be confused with easy, right? Because it's everything is really, really, really hard to get done, but it's really simple. So you have to simplify it. You have to make it so that everyone can understand it, but also respect the work that needs to get done and drive. And I'll bring up another subject. It's when you go through these things, no matter what kind of business transformation or change that you're going through, you can have great people that aren't the right people for the right seats at the right time. So you have to really work on that. And I'll talk about something that I kind of call the difference. I think we've probably spoken about this before, but the difference between being nice and being kind.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so if you're nice all the time, if you tell people, "Oh, you're doing a great job on this," but they're not, that's very nice, but it's very unkind.
Yeah.
And so what we're working on, and what I like to work on, is really that honesty about, hey, these are the things that we can do to improve, and helping that person get there. And in the end, that's kind, because either one, they're going to get there, they're going to want to be there, they're part of the team, they're the right person in the right seat at the right time to do the right things, or they're not, and that's better for them too, personally.
No,
they're going to find it, and people are going to find their place, and it's got to come from inside.
No, I love that. I love that. And I guess, Neil, so you're probably still working on perfecting, right, that nice versus kind component you just laid out. But I'm curious, so as you have, individuals that go from supervisors to managers to directors, and they're starting to evolve their careers through your organizations that you've been part of, how do you help them when maybe that's not a natural thing for them, the delineation between nice and kind that you just described? How do you help them evolve as leaders to get what you just said and put it into practice?
No, that's a great question. I think it's part of, I started with making a lot of mistakes. Everything that I'm talking about now and everything it's all about learning. And I mean, the more time you have in business, at least for me, the more mistakes you make and the more learning you get, and the more you try to draw on those things. And I think it's okay to encourage people to do some bold things and to make small mistakes, as long as it's a one-way door, right? As long as you can go through it and come back. You need to make sure that you don't make the mistakes that are so big that once you're out the door, you're not coming back through. And so that's really something to work on with the teams, and to have honest, open dialogue and to model the behavior. Because so many times I have been the other guy. I've been the guy that was not nice and not kind. And I was burning something that was my own platform. It was silly, right? And
you learn from those mistakes. But what was it that made you recognize, hey, I'm being that guy that wasn't nice and wasn't kind? And how what were the epiphanies that helped you evolve as a human being and as a professional?
Epiphany, never. No, it's the pain, right? It's the, like, when you realize when you've done that, and then you're back working with an individual again in a different context, and you're like, man, I'm not that person anymore. And but it's not an epiphany. It's a journey, right? And you're gonna make mistakes. And you know what? When you go to bed at night and you're like, something's ruminating in your head and it really bothers you about your own behavior, that's when you have to question yourself. That's when you have to actually, like, work on getting better. There's no rocket science to it. It's just some people are really super good at it. I mean, some people just
and very naturally they're good at it. But what I just heard you say is that, there's some natural self-reflection that goes on within you, and at some of those various different points, you did that. You had the self-awareness to go, well, wait a minute, that didn't go the way that I wanted it to, or it wasn't received the way I wanted it to be received, or maybe I was a jerk when I delivered it, or to me it sounds like you've got this level of self-awareness to be able to catch yourself. You've made a mistake, right? Or you've maybe not handled a situation the right way, and so what did you do then? You went back and tried to handle it differently the next time, or in the moment go back and try to adjust how you handled it in the moment that time?
Right. Well, and sometimes you have to sometimes you have to fix it right away. You recognize it and you have to fix it right away, and you can do that. And as long as you're doing it authentically. You have to be authentic. You can't be somebody different. You have to be authentic. You have to make your mistakes and move on. And so there's that. There's doing that. But there's also times where, you realize that you've done something wrong, and you pull people together. And as long as you're honest about it,
you own it.
You own it, and you're humble, then being authentic, being humble and authentic, recognize that. So you go back in, you say, hey, yesterday, that wasn't exactly how I wanted this to go down. This is what I was thinking. Not that's not how I wanted it to go down. But no, it's not. But it's that's not how I wanted it to go down. This is what I meant. No excuses for my behavior, but move forward. So you don't over apologize, but you also,
you acknowledge it, you own it, yeah,
you own it, and you move forward. And owning it and moving forward is what we have to do as leaders. And if we don't do that, then we lose our credibility. And then who's going to follow that?
No, absolutely. I think that's really well said. What I'd love to hear you speak on is, you've talked about mistakes a few times here in this conversation and the importance of learning from them. How have you created a culture where that is acceptable, comfortable, and a learning environment versus something, I made a mistake and I want to make sure as few people realize that I made a mistake? How have you culturally made that acceptable for growth?
No, that's such a great question. I've worked in an environment where I've come in as a leader, and that environment was the individual would rather be right and have the whole company fail than actually be part of a solution for the company and admit that they're wrong.
Uh-huh.
And I've actually said that in front of everyone in the company, and I've preached it like this isn't going to work. and you'll slowly start to see it shift, and you start to use the principles that you create for the business so that people have the license at any level to tell each other about that. Oh, that's the behavior that Neil was talking about. And so you have to identify those things and those things that are toxic. I had a leader that worked for me that was super, super smart. And I don't know if you've ever seen, have you ever watched Charlie Hubert, who does the podcasts, and I'm not sure if he wrote a book or not, but he does these things about charisma.
Okay.
And it's actually, I think he started around dating, but it's so interesting for business because it basically teaches you how to be a charismatic person and how to show that you care about people. And I had a leader who was brilliant, knew everything that needed to be done in his particular area of expertise, but nobody liked him. Nobody wanted to work with him. People were like, this guy's a jerk. And so I brought him in and I said, hey, I would like you to spend 100% of your time working on being charismatic. And I sent him this Charlie Hubert stuff, and he's like, Neil, you're crazy. Like, I'm going to spend 100% of my time? I said, yeah, because you know what to do. Inherently, you're not going to make a technical error. Right. But what you are going to do is you're going to stop other people from getting things done. Mm-hmm. You're going to create uncertainty. And that person did that and is working on that. And those type of things are going to make a difference for the whole company. And the litmus test for me as a leader, and I've told this individual, when people start coming and telling me that they like working with you, that's going to be when you've been successful. I'm not worried about you technically doing the right thing. I'm worried about you getting people to want to follow you and get things done and want to learn from you. And so,
what was the end story to that?
There is no end story yet.
Still work in process.
So that's why I was trying. But there is no end story yet. But there's improvement. How about that?
That's good.
And so,
good.
And by the way, there's no end story on anything.
No, absolutely.
We're on this journey, and when we think it's the end, that's when it is. but not in a good way, right? We have to keep growing, and things are constantly changing.
No, I love that example. I think it's great. So as we kind of stick with this transformation topic, that's more than transformation, right? You know, these quick iterations of making pivots and getting things right. What other kind of best in class experiences have you had, whether it's currently or previously, that have really kind of stuck with you?
What other? I mean, there's so many different things that when you look back on your career and you say, well, like, what are the stories? I could pick 5 or 6, and 10 years ago I probably could have picked 2, right? So it's what are the things that you've really done that have transformed things there's 2 things. One is they have an impact on the business, and the other is they have an impact on you. Right. And so for me, it's really, and I'm overusing this, but it's the mistakes that I've made that have had the biggest impact on me positively. Mm-hmm. At the time, they feel awful.
Right. Correct.
And they're always when you're trying to prove yourself. Yeah. Always when you're trying to prove yourself, or when that's when those mistakes happen. Is you get overzealous, or at least for me, you get overzealous. I would say that creating those stories is part of leading and creating the energy that's necessary in order to improve, to transform, to iterate. You know, right now we're doing something pretty amazing. We're really shifting a business, and getting people excited about that, and telling them some of these stories, which, you know, I won't spend a lot of time on, but telling them some of these stories of previous things in my career where I've had these huge impacts with that detail is super exciting, because you can see them saying, look, we're going to make ours right now together. We're going to tell this story. The story that we create in the next 2 years is a story that we're going to tell people throughout our career. And people early in their career, when they can recognize that and see that, they put more energy in because they know what the score is every day.
Yeah,
and they're trying to
That's great. That's great. No, I love that. All right. I'm going to shift this conversation a little bit. And I'm going to pay you a compliment, and I'm going to ask you to share a couple secrets as well. So you, as well as almost anybody out there, are really familiar with both the Protus Global side of our business and the Ace Talent Curator side of our business. You've utilized both in your own personal and career development, and you've utilized both as you've built the organizations that you've been part of. And the thing that stands out to me, Neil, is that I've gotten to watch you in multiple different scenarios, whether it be your own interview process, making a career change, or whether it be hiring talent. And I think you have done an amazing job of identifying the right people at the right time and putting them in the right seats on the bus, which you said earlier in this conversation. So what the secrets that I want you to share with everybody are, how do you do that? What are some of the foundational components that you have in place when you're interviewing either a fractional, an interim, a temp to perm, or a permanent FTE into your organizations? Why are you really good at that?
It's like anything else. You just keep working at it, and you figure out what worked and what didn't work, and you build patterns, and then you share those patterns. And I think working with people that you can trust, we learn to know each other a little bit better, right? Yep. And the patterns of that, and the way that you guys try to learn our company and learn how to bring a candidate that's going to be successful in the type of environment, and some of the hard discussions that we can have with each other where, right. I can pick up the phone and say, Mike, this search isn't going the way that I would like. I'd like to move it in this direction, and we can motivate the teams together to do that. And you can call me and say, hey, Neil, so-and-so on your team who's interviewing these people is creating this issue, or you're creating this issue. And with humility, we can move forward and try to get those things done. So there's so many times you see people who have a frame of what they want for the role that's not based on the needs of the business. It's based on their previous frames.
Yeah.
You have to really open that up and say, what am I really doing? And it all ties together. It's all about aligning incentives. What do you need for that role? Where are the gaps? And I think I'm a big fan of building the organization before you assign the people to because I think that
I've seen you do that. Absolutely.
And it's really saying, what do we need? But I've shifted a little bit actually recently on that, whereas that's great. Okay, let's build the organization. But then let's look at, let's say we have 5 people in a group, and those five people, and I've stacked the accountabilities across those 5 people, and I've hired 4 of them, and it's very clear that the accountabilities are going to be handled appropriately. But Susan over here, she's got some real strengths in the accountabilities of number 5.
Mm-hmm.
Can I shift them?
Yeah.
Can I move can I move them? Can I give her one or 2 of those accountabilities and then take 2 off her? And then that person that is the right person in the right seat becomes a different person than what we were looking for before, a different balance. And really understanding what the business needs and not trying to fit things in boxes is eye-opening, because I'm an engineer and I want everything to fit exactly the way that I had planned it before, which is kind of all ties back to how we started, which was you have to be able to iterate.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to be able to iterate in hiring. You have to be able to move. And I mean, I think that's one of the things we've worked really closely together on, as far as the temp to perm versus hiring the perm immediately. There's always looking at the risk, right, and what we're doing and how we can do that. And I think the offering that you guys provide is so consistent and allows us to work together on that. So it goes both ways.
No, love the feedback. You can have open roles and you can create org charts and you can start, trying to force things in from an engineering perspective, or you can listen and learn and evolve and iterate. You can have external partners, but if those external partners aren't willing to understand the story and tell the story accurately, and, the client partner isn't willing to bring them in to really be in a collaborative conversation and be a partner and hold each other accountable the way that you just stated, it may not create the right environment or the best environment to find the best talent quickly. So, your partnership has been amazing. I really appreciate it. Those insights right there. We're putting them into play right now, right? They're happening right now, and And, the team is motivated and excited to make sure that we're finding not just the right talent for Silver King Beverage, but also that talent fits the journey that you guys are going on, and they want to be part of something that is, evolving and iterating at the pace that it is. So I think that's really cool, and I appreciate it. I think we've given the audience some really good insights on what we'll call iterations versus transformations.
The other thing is having a lot of experience and relying on that experience is one thing. There's also after you get a certain number of years in working, how do you remain relevant? And so one of the things that, and it comes from a lot of building relationships and things like that, but one of the things that I've done recently before I was at Silver King Beverage was to take on some advisories in the early stage. And I'm working with an amazing AI startup called Humble and helping them kind of bring AI into manufacturing leaders, operations leaders like me, so that they can remain relevant, understand how to use it, and the system is going to be phenomenal. So I'm not trying to sell my own advisory, but it's a great thing. I'm working on a fintech called Tip Inc. that's trying to revolutionize the way that people get tipped, and in the hospitality industry. And this was from an individual that I worked with in the UK, who called me and said, let's see how many years, called me almost 15 years later and said, Neil, I remember that how you got things done. And I wanted to work with you again because I need somebody's help, and asked me to help.
That's great.
It was fantastic, and a lot of other funny stories that I won't tell. And then I'm working on a beverage. I think you tried it yesterday, called Vibe, which was early stage that I started before I was at Silver King Beverage. I don't have enough time to work on these things anymore, but I'm still, every once in a while helping the founders, because I'm 120% of my time on the current role, but I'm helping these founders get to a particular level and using introductions and things. And I'm pleasantly surprised at the value. And I think that the key part about that is that I'm not an executive. I'm a combination of all of those things that I've done. And going back and exercising some of those things every once in a while is great. And also learning about technology and understanding how technology is changing is essential.
Yeah.
Because I want to work, 20, 30 more years.
I'm so glad you shared that, because I don't even know what the percentage of executives that I talk to bring up something similar to what you just said. And those that have had the opportunities like you have had, where they are on boards or advising or whatever they're doing, they lean on them in so many different ways to, bring value to what their current, day job is. And those that don't have them are really curious and wanting to understand how we can help them open those types of doors so they can start to get that kind of interaction, so they can continue to be relevant. Absolutely, I agree with that. To continue to be challenged in a different way, continue to give back in a different way. And so I think I'm really glad you brought that up, because it's a really hot topic with those that are doing it and those that have not yet had the opportunity to, because they really want to be able to get involved in that way and continue their own development. So I love that you put that on the table. I really appreciate you coming in, brother. It's always great to spend time with you, and I always learn every time we get a chance to hang out. So thank you very much.
Well, just